Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Let's Agree to Disagree Off-Road. Today, we're in episode 8, and you'll be having me, Rais, from the Jeep community,
Dean from Rani Automotive,
Wael, Jeep Nation.
Amer from Amer Automotive as well.
Yeah. So today's topic, a couple of episodes ago, so it was, I believe, episode 5, we spoke about air intakes, and we debunked the myth of air intakes adding power or adding horsepower as these companies they do claim. There are benefits of having them, but it's not for adding. So today we're going to talk about how do we actually add power, whether it was horsepower, whether it was torque, and what are the methods to do that. And in order to be useful as well for your experience, not just, depends on how you're going to be using, but since we speak off-road, so we'll see where this will take us. So, Amer, would you like to share your thoughts?
the professor.
Definitely. So, making more power. Making more power is one of the most heavily debated topics in cars. To put it in a very simple definition, making more power is basically putting more air and fuel in the engine. And many times it's not just adding actual more air and fuel by forcing it, such as superchargers, turbochargers. It's actually making the engine capacity larger. And there's a few other things that branch off from that. What we're gonna do to make things let's say applicable to the cars that we use in the region. Naturally aspirated, a non-turbocharged, non-supercharged engine, such as Wrangler, FJ Cruiser, anything with a V8 like
Patrol.
a Hemi or a Chevy or a Patrol. And then the forced induction cars, such as the new Wrangler with the 2-liter turbo. What else is forced induction today?
No, but I don't think the 2-liter turbo anyways.
It's not applicable in this country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair.
Raptor.
It's for use.
The Raptor, the V6,
EcoBoost,
the V6 EcoBoost, that's a good example actually. So, you have a standard engine, let's say that makes it 300 horsepower on average, as most V6s are doing today, and you want to make more power. You add either a turbocharger or a supercharger, you stuff more air into the same size piston, same size cylinder, and you add the fuel by tuning bigger injectors, bigger fuel pump, and you make more power.
Yeah. And throw more money.
And throw more money, definitely. What's going to cost you more money, in the same token, is when you enlarge the engine, or you try to make a more powerful naturally aspirated engine by increasing the compression, adding cams, more aggressive cams, working on the cylinder heads. These things cost,
Which is not applicable to all engines anyway. It's not applicable to all engines.
Definitely not to all the engines.
If you're
out there.
comparing FJ's, what was it? 3.4
4 liters,
4 liter,
4 liter.
yeah.
1G.
With the Pentastar 3.6, I don't believe the Pentastar you can do much to it in order to add.
Not much. I think what Jeep has
Either
done.
the FJ, you cannot do much to it. It's an aluminium block, and you have to do so many things to reach to that.
FJ's you can add a direct drive instead of.
I believe adding a sticker of
Some
Jeep
people
on
will
it
get
will be
that.
fine.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
There's a company called, I can't remember the name, I think it could be Brian Crower.
Brian Crowers.
They do a stroker kit for the FJ motors.
Yes.
To 4.3.
That's the advantage of the FJ engine. Is it has a bigger
4.4
stroke
to
to
reach
begin with.
the-
Something like this.
Yeah, 4.4.
4.4,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's quite a good, I'm sure it's expensive.
So you're talking about how many horsepower?
I'm working on a project for that, and literally estimate cost from USA till now $18,000 without shipping, without doing anything.
See, this is
The
what
same
I was
kit with
referring
the-
to. To make more power naturally aspirated costs you a lot more dollars per horsepower
That's
than
true.
you do by going forced
It's an
induction.
expensive game, yeah.
Then
And
you
there's a
have
good
high
factor.
octane fuel and
With a good factor that you don't know for how long this life engine is.
exactly. And most of the time you lose torque, you gain horsepower, or if
And
you
you
do a
have
fixed
to add
rotor,
so many factors
gain
like
torque, lose
tuning
horse.
and things like that.
Good
which
fuel.
is- So many things.
And all of that is to gain how many horsepower?
With a naturally aspirated engine, how much addition you're going to do?
100?
15%
Nah,
on the
not
original power?
160,
60?
I would think.
Horsepower?
Yeah.
But you won't up the engine power by any more than 15-20% with a standard block and standard hits.
But I do know people that they added the engine power with more than
You
that.
will, but it's
for
going to
how
be
long?
very limited. For how long? Race engines, they're designed to last you 2-3 runs.
2 runs and that's it.
But that's it, exactly.
Congratulations.
Rebuild.
All the circuit
Right away.
cars a season at best, you know.
Yeah, that's as much as they can do.
Okay. So, I mean, if you're talking about that much of adding power, like if we're going to be, let me speak about myself. I think this is absolutely useless and waste of money, and there is no point of doing that. Right?
Depend for
Yeah,
what
depend.
purpose you want.
Yeah, but
You can build it for a
exactly,
racetrack,
but
yeah.
We're talking off-road. If we're talking off-road,
no.
why do we need that much extra power to the engine?
Just to climb the hill. That's it.
Like,
Yeah.
what I believe is needed is that you do need torque
Yes.
on your side. This is something that will add value to the investment that you're doing. But when you're adding horsepower, I don't see what's the purpose. I know there are people that would like to go to one of the biggest dunes and just go up and down the whole day, but I mean that's not really.
Even with
complicated
$20,000
off-roading skills.
spending on the car, you cannot go all day. You can go twice. That's it.
Yeah.
Then you have to
That-
go down.
You go down and you have to do so many things to be able to perform more.
So
Yeah.
checkbook racing at the end of the day.
Agreed.
But is there? Can we say, or can we, let's say, recommend a limited type of, instead of putting that much going to force induction, or
Definitely.
what can be done that is reasonable in order to actually gain power?
You can do that. See, there's a big misconception here, whether it's off-roading or track racing or even ice racing, whatever it is. People think you always need to add power first. Most of the time, they're not even using the power they already have.
Traction.
Traction, gear multiplication ratios, weights, tire size. A lot of these things affect what's happening.
Yeah.
And like simple things such as intake, exhaust, and maybe a simple tune, right?
100%.
Like, there's a lot there that you're not actually using. So before you go ahead and put a turbocharger, supercharger, high compression, low compression pistons, cams, etc., use what you have. Use what you have.
Build your skills. Get
As a
done with
driver.
your car to be able to get to know
Yeah.
it more. Then you can figure out what you want to add.
Sure.
I
But
mean,
if you allow me to say that, if I have to add whatever you said, Race, people they are looking forward to add power, but they forget one factor, that sometimes they are not adding power; they are restoring what they lost during the wrong modification. While they are modification, they are adding. I want Bigfoot, big things. I want to be like a monster, but they forget the factor that all these modifications it will affect the performance. To be able to regain what they lost, there is very simple method of going for gear ratio. Those things people are getting confused about it. They want to go for the top. You don't need the top. You don't need to go for 488 if you're going for 33. There is a basic
It's
calculation
basic math, yes.
to reach to there. While this, it's not adding power. You are gaining what you lost by the bigger tires and things like that. So this mindset have to be set properly and get to know for what purpose you are building the car. If you want it just for show, go whatever you want. Go for 40 size tires and keep it stock if you're just for show. If you want to go it for daily use, you have to go for certain size of tires, certain size of drive shaft, certain size of so many things to be able to perform in a proper way. Everyone have his own aspect for what he needs.
Now, I see this with customers every day.
Sure.
A customer walks in and says, hey, I want to put all the bells and whistles on my car. Fine, all right, sure. We'll put the metal bumpers, we'll put the winch, we'll put the batteries, we'll put the fridge, we'll put the big bead locks and the weight of the bead locks, 33, 35s, even 37, some of them. So you started with a Jeep that weighed, let's say, 1,800 kilos. Now it weighs 2,100 kilos. You're basically almost as heavy as a Raptor, but you still have half the power of a Raptor. And you sure as hell don't have the torque.
True.
So then they go to this and they come back, man, I'm struggling. My car's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He's
do
not
this.
struggling because of modification. He's blaming you because you are responsible for
This is how I deal with my customers before I
the
sell
mindset.
anything.
Mindset them for what purpose you want.
Exactly. I need two things. What is your budget and what is your
Expectations.
no, what is your aim? What is your goal? Or is this your dedicated weekender or is this your daily driver that you take to school with, to the kids to school with, and you go to work? Which one is it? If it's going to be your dedicated weekender, fine. 35s, 488s. You're not going to care much about the RPM on the highway because you're driving it only to the desert. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's a daily driver, go for 4.56. So these little things.
Or even some people would say 456 is not very convenient for daily drive.
There's that. Yeah,
it's
some
driving
people
style.
prefer 410s.
It's driving style. I drive my car different than you use it, so.
Yeah, but I mean, there are driving styles and there are facts.
True.
The moment you put 456 or the moment you increase ring and pinion. So what I think is that people needs to be educated about the pros and cons of what they are doing. So when you're going to the extreme, let's say in terms of engine modifications, you're not really helping yourself because you're not doing an investment for something that you're supposed to be driving every day.
Yes.
You should be investing in something that might enhance the capabilities of your vehicle, but without causing it to get damaged from a couple of trials. Number two is that let's talk about the other items that you can do that will not affect on a short term the life of your vehicle, but then it affects maybe your daily experience. Yeah, for example, if we're talking about ring and pinion, let's say in a stock, I'm still towards the Jeep because I'm a Jeep guy, but on a stock one, it's a 373. Let's say if we're talking about sport, so you get more or less better fuel consumption than the upper.
It's the good balance for what the car has.
And sometimes you have it 3-to-1.
It has
The Almani spec.
And then the more you go up on ring and pinion, you lose top speed, which I don't believe much of an issue in a Jeep, since you're basically driving a wall.
Do you want to hit 200 km an hour in a car?
Aerodynamics of a
Do you
washing
want to go 200 in a Wrangler?
Yeah.
I don't.
You can.
I wouldn't like to anyway.
Why would you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally you're driving a wall. It's a block. There is no aerodynamics.
It's flat.
There's nothing. It's flat. You're just you against air, and then when you go more, your fuel consumption increases. However, you need also to connect between. In order, you cannot just go more in ring and pinion without. I said this term before, having the right formula.
Yes.
So when you're adding ring and pinion, there is a factor which is affecting the amount of weight coming from the tires. So if you have high ring and pinion with a small tire, you'll basically be digging more than enjoying a drive. You add more tire, you have a more balanced formula, let's say. Dean, I think you always you're a guy of working on engine enhanced vehicles. And I've driven a couple with you. I've ridden a couple with you. So, do you think for off-roading, is it worth to invest in or what is, let's say, let me rephrase that. What would be a convenient investment to do in order to get an amount of power that will enhance your experience, but without killing the life of your engine?
I would go just a ring and pinion, honestly. I mean, for the company car example, 456 35s,
Every drive, no
beautiful
issues.
daily driver. You can go to Fajera with it, no issues. Does
Perfect.
400 odd
It's the
k's to a
most
tank.
ideal one.
It's bang on in the middle. I mean, we had, or I dealt with a customer that had Sprintex 4-door, 456s and 33s.
Mm-hmm.
And, power.
It's digging.
It's a struggle in the sand.
It's digging.
And then we had my Jeep, which I'm driving, the 4-door, 456, and I was on 37s at that time.
Yes.
And I think we gave him the car for the weekend or something like that. It's like, man, this thing is a monster. And he couldn't believe it. He was like dumbfounded. He's like, man, this car goes so much better in the sand than my 400 horsepower one with.
Because you're in the torque band. You're in the usable torque band.
I think you can go too much.
Proper calculation for that.
Yeah, you can go too much.
You can.
I think a naturally aspirated one on 488s and 35s is a good, more fun-orientated car.
Yeah, that's a car that just
Take it to the
spreads line
sand.
all day.
Yeah, exactly. But
Draw
you're
a
not going to
pocket
drive
from
it
it.
around the city and go on long trips and stuff with.
There's one important thing. So you're asking about what you'd invest with, how much you'd invest to make how much power and still be reliable. To make power, okay, you have 3 limitations: cost, efficiency, and power. These three things. So how much power do you want? For how much money do you want? For how much reliability? You can only choose two. If you want to choose three, then that's a race budget. That's
Yeah.
higher than what people want to spend on a daily driven car. So you'd spend a lot of money to make a lot of power, but it's not going to be reliable. You don't want a lot of power, maybe a little bit of money, but a reliable setup, which is where a 6 psi Sprintex setup.
Yeah.
The engine has no issues. It'll ride it all day, 3-4
Yeah.
years with no issues.
No issues.
Right? So
But
There's-
how much power you're gaining from that?
About 100 horsepower.
You
Roughly.
just said 100 is not possible.
On an NA setup.
an NA setup is different. We're talking forced induction.
Okay. No,
And-
okay.
With the least amount of
80 to 100 horse.
on average, depending on
Yeah.
the health of the engine.
Yeah.
But that's basic.
Is it that worth it? I mean, as a personal opinion, I don't see why would someone invest in a forced induction. Really, in off-roading, I mean, it's not, you're not driving a racing car. You're driving a car to experience off-roading.
Look, I
So you
think-
don't have tracks, you have terrains. So what do you need to conquer terrains? You need torque. You need
That's where a supercharger
liable
comes in.
capability. Yeah, but supercharger is, I
Have a side
believe it's
effect.
overdoing it.
Akid.
There's a side effect.
It has so you are decreasing the liability of your
Big time.
vehicle.
Definitely, you're making more power than it was designed to make. It is within the safety factor of the engine design, but what you're getting out of it is that mid-range, that slight torquelessness in the V6, which is pretty much on most V6s.
There, yeah.
That's where the supercharger comes in. This is where we all wished that our Wranglers had V8s.
Yeah, but
That's where the supercharger comes in.
when you're talking about less torque, then we go again to the ring and pinion, which is a much cheaper investment. That will give you that torque.
Ring and pinion,
It
you
will,
multiply
it will
the torque.
utilize the smaller capacity of your engine into transferring it into more torque.
You know what the
hence-
nickname of a ring and pinion is in drag racing? The poor man's supercharger.
Okay, fair
That's
enough.
what they call it. So you have a 300 horsepower V8 with a short ring and pinion versus a 400 horsepower V8 with a standard ring and pinion. Both roughly here, just for an example's sake. They're pretty much the same cars.
Yeah.
They'll do the quarter mile at the same thing.
Yeah.
So yes, that works.
The most important factor is your skills, because if you have 4, 5, 6 and you have no control on the car, you cannot get the benefit out of it. You need to know
Yeah.
to bond with your car well, to understand how the gear shift, how the things, where the weak point, where you have to increase the power, where you have to decrease. All these things, it will help you to get more power. But if I answer your question, which is you asked for Sudan, I prefer to go for stock engine without any modification for it.
Most reliable setup.
Most reliable, long life setting, just a lift kit, ring and pinion, and peace of mind.
Pretty much that is
Peace
realistically
of
all you need.
ring and even again, everyone is different. I'm still I'm agreeing to that. I mean, I believe the car that I had fair enough capabilities. I mean, I invested in other things in order to make it perform in a well.
You utilize
Right.
the power you had.
Yes, I mean,
Efficient.
I did not change ring and pinion, and I did not tune the engine, and I did not add anything to the engine that in terms of adding power. Yes, the driver is a very strong factor, and I believe we had a discussion about that in a previous episode. But there are a lot of people who, خلاص, they have that urge to add to tell everyone that I have more horsepower than the normal one.
There's
But
the
I
brownie
would
points for it. as well.
I think we're more or less in agreement of is it really needed or no, or what is the benefits or what is the cons of having it. But I think it's good to educate people on what do you need to do if you really have that urge in order to get more. And let's taking it a bit by bit. So in terms of, let's say, from back to forth. So if you added a more higher ring and pinion, so you're adding more torque.
You're
So
multiplying your
what
torque.
is it connected to? Axle shafts
Yeah.
and
So whenever
the axle shafts and the what was the other one? The drive shafts.
drive shafts.
So when someone says I think they use the wrong term when they say you're enhancing performance by putting an upgraded drive shaft, because I mean the drive
That's the
shaft
same
is
thing.
basically taking the power from the
You're enhancing reliability.
yeah.
at this point,
So
mainly.
why is a heavy duty drive shaft is a better investment than keeping it with the stock?
It's a different mechanism.
Yeah.
The stock one have different mechanism than the heavy duty one. That's why people getting reliable more on the heavy duty one. But back to the same question. What's the ratio? We're talking about 410, 456, 488, but what does that mean? That's misconcept in the market that 456 it will give you RPM like that on highway on Sheikh Zayed Road, which is completely wrong. When people if you want to educate your customer to be able to make proper decision, the ratio is 410 is the time of the spinning of the drive shaft in regards to the tires. So your tires gonna spin 4.10 times more than drive shaft or vice versa, whatever the thing.
Yep.
If they get to understand this, then they will be able to answer your question without asking anyone. They calculated that RPM 3000 RPM, but the 3000 RPM what's related to the gear? There's another ratio which is a transfer case. All this mechanism have to go through a different process, but the normal customer, normal driver, you don't need to be educated to this level, but you have to be able to explain what he's doing in his car.
I give them a simple example. Remember the bicycle you had as a kid?
Exactly. I don't have one. Dad, you have to get me one. Okay.
The one when it's really hard but you go fast,
Yeah.
or when it's really light and you can go up a hill. Simple
That's
example. Most of them get it. Most of the time.
That's simple things. Without getting more complicated about different things. You advise him for a heavy duty drive shaft just because it's more reliable, different mechanism. He don't need to go more details about that because instead of that, he's gonna go in and out for the agency if it's under warranty. Otherwise, he's gonna spend more money to change the mechanism of the drive shaft.
I've seen this with a lot of customers where people explain the same. So for example, the drive shaft thing. A lot of people will tell you, no, the heavy duty drive shaft is heavier than the stock one, so you lose power.
They're not talking about the one you are having or the one Tom Wood is having. They're talking about the old generation, which is coming like
Yeah,
this
the older
forward.
method, basically.
Literally, if you put to drive, the car still
doesn't.
cannot move.
Yeah.
That's the old generation, and that's the old method.
There's a lot of, even till today, there's still a lot of misinformation about what this modification actually does. Because it was carried over from people or it was just mis-explained by someone.
Not
And then it
just
just
people
continues.
read something and they convince others with something they don't know about.
I had a customer who once came in and told me he was convinced by someone that putting XJ stock axles, listen to this
That's right.
one, on a TJ, converting from leaf, cutting everything, putting it on a TJ.
YJ.
No, from an XJ to a TJ, because the XJ had shorter ratios and they put the smaller, not the 44, the Chrysler 8 and quarter,
35.
the 35,
The car
on a
will
TJ.
run the different.
one trip, that's all it took.
It's
One
good.
drive.
If he did it one drive, it's great.
One drive, he came back with the shocks dangling
Minimum.
off the chassis.
Minimum.
And so and he was very much convinced, paid a lot of money for it.
Why? Because somebody convinced him to do that. Yeah.
Lack of education about this.
There's no education.
Serious issue.
There is a saying.
And misinformation.
There is a saying in Arabic. يمدحون الشباب. And this will become the more headache to any
A
workshop.
friend of a friend said this.
Exactly.
Yep.
And you have to
Yep.
convince the wrong things, but you are not reliable.
Yeah.
They have either to do whatever they want, either you have to do something else.
Or they think you're out there to get their money or something. Like, really, you want to buy it or not? I'm not going to benefit
100%.
from this. I'm trying to make sure you get a good, nice, and reliable car that fits what you're trying to do.
True.
Not what I want. It's what you want. And I'm trying to provide you a solution.
Currently, I'm working on an FJ who's having a stroker kit. And out of sudden, he came with a new concept that he's gonna hate me now. Yes, you're gonna watch me and you're gonna hate me. He came, not you, the customer.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at the camera.
I was like, what?
No. So the point is, he came with an
Not the
idea.
one who gets eaten.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, he said, I want to add a supercharge to it as well. So you have stroker engine 4.4 and he want to go for supercharging. I said, why? We can do that. Why? Just give me more reason why. You are paying for that, I don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it for you. But I'm not responsible for anything because I'm not the one who's gonna tune it. You're gonna tune it. If anything happened during the tune, your responsibility. If something happened, and even those parts, there's no warranty, there's no guarantee on that.
None.
Yeah, no, but I need to do quick ride on the top. Do you need it?
Do you really need it?
Supercharged with stroker engine 4.4? No way.
If you want to rebuild it every month, fine.
Yeah, I don't mind. Then I will do boutique workshop and I'll do only with one customer. That's it.
Pretty much so.
Question. So how liable is it to tune an engine?
There's an issue with tuning.
Yeah.
Every other shop, every other mechanic or
YouTube tuner.
engineer or someone who has watched the YouTube tuner
They
video.
do it in his backyard and he's the best in the market.
See, there's the people which have actually have access to the tools and they can really modify the parameters, and then there's the I can upload the tune to your car
Yeah.
type guy.
Yeah.
So.
Copy paste.
Exactly. So I mean,
As if it will work with every car.
they tell you they're a tuner, right? And all they do is give you a bit more fueling, a bit more timing, and that's about it.
Hope you don't get knock and detonation.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. If the limiter doesn't show up, you're fine.
Yeah.
But that's far from what's happening. There's a lot more to tuning an engine. So honestly, if you cannot have a proper tuning session with logs and a specific outcome of this engine, a realistic outcome of what you want out of it, don't bother and tune unless you get something from a reputable tuner, which is a safe, uploadable tune from someone that
Done the R&D.
exactly they've spent the money, they've blown a few engines before they're gonna sell it to public.
But the same method is being applicable to the agency. Before they launch any car, they did a lot of investment to be able to give you the
The most
safety limit of
expensive
the
part of
things.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But the fact they will never give you the maximum performance because they have parameters that they have
This
to
parameter is for,
maintain.
is,
They
is
have
for your safety.
taxes
It's not for something
they're
else.
paying. They have efficiency,
Emissions, etc.
about all
So if
of
you want
this.
to play with all
But,
this,
I mean,
why are you
what's
blaming
the-
the car?
Let's say, what's the maximum you can get out of a tuning in terms of percentage to the power of a vehicle?
Percentage.
Naturally aspirated engine,
10.
Yeah.
10-15% at
Yeah.
best. We're talking here stock injectors, or just a
You
stock
can-
motor,
You can
stock
only
car.
add so much timing, and you can. That's basically it.
You know,
Bit of
get me a
timing.
turbocharger like a Golf GTI.
Yeah.
You do a downpipe, an intake, and a stage 1 tune. You're up 50 horsepower, 60 horsepower, and you've upped the
Stage
torque
1 software,
substantially.
almost 100
It's
horsepower.
not GTI. Why you
But
need
this
this unit? It's a GTI. Why you need a unit?
It's already a good package.
Fuel and
Exactly.
boost. And
Fuel
some
and
timing.
boost. Yeah, that's it. So those cars are easy, but a naturally aspirated car that honestly already has a very good graph of power, like horsepower to torque and reliability at the same time, there's not much you can get out of that engine because they've already tuned it nicely.
You could port the heads but I mean the Pentastar was initially designed to be turboed for the Cadillac 3.2
Yes.
twin turboed.
Yes.
So I don't think you're going to get a much better flow out of the Pentastar heads
Yes,
than
it's
what's
already a
there.
good design. The 3.6
Yeah.
is an exceptionally efficient engine, by the
Yes.
way. Out of 3,600 cc's, it does a really good amount.
Yeah.
If only they recommended the proper ways to maintain it.
Yeah.
Then we'll use the proper oil first. Then we'll talk
And then we'll go there.
then we'll talk about that.
We'll keep
How
this
many
for
lifters per
later.
tank do you do, sir?
But even the petrol motor, the TB48, I think you give it a bit of timing and an intake. It does like 80 horse.
The thing about the TB48 is it's so under-tuned from the factory.
Yeah.
And
To
the TB48,
be reliable.
The TB48, honestly, if you take the engine out and you put it next to the generator engine out of like a Perkins generator,
almost, yeah.
it's pretty much the same length
Yeah.
from oil pan to valve cover. It's got a rod that's like half a foot long and a piston bore that you could cook in.
Yeah.
It will make just throw
engine,
tuning,
yeah.
like just ignition and fuel, and you're making power.
Let us have something to argue with the guys. I feel that you are frustrated. You want to argue with someone.
No.
Just feel
I'm
it.
just because the reason I'm asking the questions is that I'm getting to my own conclusion in here. Whenever I get asked, is it worth it to invest in a forced induction? My answer is immediately no. If you're talking off-road, I'm off-road oriented, so this is my response. Why is that? I mean, unless your purpose is only to go to the highest dune and spend the whole day going up and down, then yeah, go for it. You have the extra money, do whatever you want. But is it a correct way to invest if you're someone who's driving, having technical drives goes to mountain areas and does as well crawling, if you do all of
then
this,
I think not.
I don't really see why would you invest in that much of a of
Stock engine, proper maintenance.
yeah, I mean, stock engine. If and when I get asked, so what do I do in terms of performance in order to get more? I would say always is that if you really want to invest, if you really want to get immediate torque out of the engine as it is without putting more money that will affect the lifetime of your engine, is that you can go back to the ring and pinion, because this will make your engine, in my perception, is that it will make the engine more efficient because you're using the power of the engine. However, you're getting more out of it by simply adding a better ratio to the ring and pinion. Again, it's a formula. So you don't go for the highest ring and pinion and then end up with a small tire that will keep on digging in its place. Or even if you're going to a mountain area, the extra torque will be hurtful. You will break something when you accelerate more than it needs to. So it has... Yeah, exactly. So you need the formula between your ring and pinion. You know your engine. You should at this point you should know your engine and capabilities. So that's why you feel you need more. Because if you're just doing it out of, you bought it brand new and you just want to add everything, there is no point of that. And definitely, this is just an not well thought
combination.
Yeah, exactly. So
from a I don't know, fun perspective, I'm not saying it's more fun or less, but I went with some local guys that had supercharged JKs, and I was in a supercharged JK. Man, what a day! Like high speed switches, it was nuts. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I was tired after the drive.
Rewarding.
Man, it was crazy.
Torque is addictive.
It was crazy. It was quite an experience, although again, not absolutely necessary, but it was.
So basically, you have the funds and you are capable to do that.
Yeah.
So you go for it because you have a certain level of, let's say, extreming your experience.
Yeah, that was like
certain income to.
But it's not for the daily or everyday guy who's learning, or even an experienced driver who would want to go home with the same vehicle and make sure that it's
and take it to work the next day.
Shit happens. We all know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least you're putting the right things in order, and then you're investing in a proper way. Let's say this is what I would
in an ideal world. Last time we were talking about what is the most, what's the first or most important modifications you do to the car. So you max out your car in stock form. Stock 29-inch tires, no intake, no exhaust, no tune, nothing, no ring and pinion. Max it out. Drive the wheels off the car. Exactly, you can. All of us learned on a stock, like we all learned on something that was nowhere near to what we drive today. And we drive the way we drive because of those cars. So max that car out. When that's it, it's incapable to do what you really want. Or every time you try to do that, you start breaking things because that's it. The stock shock and it's just not capable.
What's the main important things here, or the mindset of any driver or new off-road or something like that? I believe, Reyes, you face that the same. If you go to a place and there is a hill and they couldn't able to reach the top, they will come back to you and ask you, what do you recommend me to do with the car?
Yeah.
Which is, unfortunately, so many people, I recommend to do this, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the ideal question is, practice it.
Practice, try it.
Understand your vehicle.
Do it. Understand your vehicle.
Develop yourself
then you will
as
find
a driver.
Exactly.
Play with pressures, or
the factor now in all the off-road communities. Even with us, you will find some people they will recommend do this. It's a waste of money because you don't know what you are spending. You don't know what you are adding to your car. You don't use your car to be able to understand what you add to the modification. Build it up, then you will figure out yourself what you want.
And there's nothing nicer, honestly, or rewarding, as much as your driver skill increases and you modify the car according to the way you like to
match,
drive. The result will be beautiful. Supercharged or not, V8 or not, manual, whatever it is.
That's why I keep saying it's 90% driver. Anyway, I think it's time to wrap anyway. Look, today was, I think, it was obvious that it's going to be more of an educational episode rather than an argumental one. So let's be friends today.
Discussion.
So let's agree all that it's 95% driver.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
not a modification.
That number keeps on going up every time I hear it. 70, 80, 90,
95.
99.
Do I hear 96? 96? Do I hear 90?
So you don't agree on 95?
90 is good. 90.
90 is good?
90.
90 is fine.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. It's 90.
You should have been
You
with
got
me. the
anything
last
less than a
episode.
car, 10%, you don't have a car anymore. Like, just running on the dunes.
Yeah, you should have been with me the last one because everyone was objecting to me saying 90. So anyway, so we're wrapping up today's episode.
Let's agree to agree.
Let's agree to agree. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. So I guess it's a wrap for today. So thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any comments, leave them down there. See you.